Okay, welcome to the Grolier. Thank you for everyone for being here. If you can take a second and silence your cell phones, this would be the time. That would be great. Um, Tonight I have the pleasure of introducing three poets, which I'll do quickly, and then you will get to listen to them read. Oh, that's not nice. The problem is the feedback. Okay. Okay, the first is Kevin Holden. That I'm going to introduce. It's going to be chiastic. I'm not going to be reading the rest to read. It will become clear. His most recent book is Pink Noise, which is at once reverent and irreverent. It deals with hyperdimensional space whose superfluidity, supertransitivity is sexual and queer. The I and the U of Pink Noise are both vectors and vectorialists, weeping into happy cubes and saying goodbye to workers, patterns, and their project, which isn't real and, quote, never was, both the dream of the book and the dream of hypercommodification. In this world's glassy mathematics, crack to reveal a logic, quote, that flows backward, inverted gods that, quote, thrust an infinite variation, split in two, such that they're both in front and behind, ask over and over which side of the mirror they're on. The poems use repetitions and refractions to induce queer desire. I love you, we love each other to say, the young men in their arms again, the men. And often self correct themselves. Fossil, meteorite star, no, music on a hill played, warped by the wind. There are love poems that say please, they say sorry, they say I miss you so, showering cedar, bid go go, and say I love you. They themselves are the cyber voice plane. They direct their readers to transform and, in their active reading, be transformed by, and they invoke hyperlinguistics forms, words that no one can pronounce, but that every word in the language rhymes with. If Kevin's poems struggle with and try to overcome their own two-dimensionality on the page plane, Gillian Conoley's are a deep, my sister is a Gillian with a G, so I apologize. Gillian Conoley's are a deep mycorrhizal network amid which the reader passenger begins to step and swerve in an unsteady manner, and which theorize their own associativeness. When something barely holds together, she asks in one poem, is it divinity? In the middle of notes from the passenger, Connolly traces a strange and miraculous typology from mystical encounter, martyrdom, and veneration of double martyrs, Perpetua and Felicity, to contemporary resources and record keeping machines, Perpetua the font and Perpetua the pencil, comparing the visionary with the poem's pen as divine mediators. The book ends with a love letter, cum thank you note, call it a breakup memo to God. The poem itself, like that prelapsarian keyhole of a hut, a room, stanza where my finger, quote, lingers, hand on the pen, quote, as you rode by, as if through the liquidity into which the poet is casted away herself. The long spinal stretch and, quote, ice of knowing you, creator, is over, thank you, and the, quote, buzz saw and honeybee of our correspondence. God has been disfigured by the world, Connolly describes, alien in this place, which is also his, quote, interstitial musculature where ceiling angels peel and flake. The shaken narrator pacing the block and running his fingers, which are the world, over the world. Finally, Julie Carr's poems imagine this precise kind of lyric exchange between reader and writer, I and you, as an exchange of time, and not one overseen by any god either. Rather, institutional piety has been replaced in her poems by imaginative piety, that is, poetic structure, a dialogue in which the point of view of the I speaker can become that of the reader and vice versa, asking questions, quote, from the point of view of a bird and metamorphosizing over and over at the level of the line. Routines, quote, are literalized and abstracted again, in turn, held in the arms of a girl, and then realized in the routine rendered by moving through the poem's own, often serial, forms. In this way, her poems are about, just in part, literary production as well as reproduction and rebirth of lots of kinds. The author of 15 books of poetry and prose, the most recent of which is Underscore from Omnidon, and also a trained dancer, Carr has received the University of Georgia Contemporary Poetry Prize and the Sawtooth Poetry Prize, won the National Poetry Series competition, and has been granted an NEA fellowship. She's a professor of women's and gender English and Women's and Gender Studies at the University of Colorado in Boulder, and she is the associate director and co-founder of Counterpath Press. Gillian Conoley is the founder and editor of Volt magazine, a translator from the French, and the author of 10 books of poetry, the most recent of which is Notes from the Passenger. Her numerous awards and recognitions include the Shelley Memorial Award from the Poetry Society of America, the Jerome Shostak Poetry Prize, the Northern California Book Award, an NEA also, and a Fund for Poetry Award. She has taught at Iowa, the University of Denver, Vermont College, Tulane, and Sonoma State. Kevin Holden's poetry, criticism, and translations from the French, German, and Russian circulate widely and are widely acclaimed. He's the author of 7 books and chapbooks, the most recent of which are Pink Noise and Solar, both from Nightboat, the latter of which was a finalist also for the National Poetry Series and a winner of the Postmodern Poets Prize. He has taught at Bard, Brown, and Harvard, and a junior fellow at the Society of Fellows at Harvard, is currently the writer in residence of the Kirkland House at Harvard. Please welcome Julie Carr, Gillian Conoley, and Kevin Holden, and first to read will be Julie.
Does anyone want to take my seat for 15 minutes or so? Claire, you want to? Should I be using this mic or what's?
Zoom mic, the one on the table.
Yeah.
Speak into the one that's closer to your face. That would be great.
Okay.
But I don't think it's necessary if you project.
Okay. You don't think it's?
I can hear you just fine.
Oh, okay. All right. Hi everyone. It's really nice to be here. This is where I grew up. So my family is here, which is lovely and makes me nervous. And also, you know, normally I would never brag, but I'm going to brag that I won the Grolier Poetry Prize when in 1998. And it was a big deal. It was a really big deal because I had never won anything. And, you know, it was like a little bird whispering, yes, you could be a poet. I'm going to read from Underscore, just a handful of poems, and then I'm going to shift to a newer project. I guess about Underscore, I'll just say that this is a book that is dedicated to 2 mentors of mine, both of whom died in 2020, and that was Jean Valentine, the poet, and Nancy Stark Smith, the dancer, and very important leader in dance improvisation. And so much of what this book is doing is trying to, I guess, evoke or think about or be in what they gave me, what they taught me, which maybe I'll say a little bit more about as I read, or maybe you'll just have to sense from the poems. Okay. Was the world full of shields, of old robes hung heavy with daylight? Before my birth and your electric cry, I rode in on you and on wind, a public wind, toward the rupture glide, that eagle with its white feathered round skull flies, cruising and wordless in its breadth, reaching rivers dusk. From out of the past of the hills, it heads down into dust, for and of it. Heat. And you know, maybe obviously since I said 2020, a lot of these poems were written during COVID, so this one has that reference. Heat. Amassing metadata spins the world's soul. When it's not me, it's telling me whose heat rises, how the heat hangs out in a cloud, how the heat mounts a kid's future and rides it to some sedimented end. The way I wait for sleep, the way I wake and rise, venture outside, the way I twist my wrist, the way it all, no matter what, gets away. Our gate hangs low and will not latch. It lets us go to where a beam meets those sun-gathered teens. They shine, their legs unfold. how I bury my gusts in my almost adamantine will to scan the names for names I know, no more mere than they are massive, like the weight of dust-crowned loam. Out of the lost age of applause comes a flash of my brother's laugh. It's slow to suture, then it slips. Men meet, then sit. The hot thing thinks, left of this clod, I with my hoe collapse. Seasonal poem. Rooks in autumn, a pair of rouged and lowered guisarmes, repair my stack of hours. Cricket in the curtain, erotically abloom asters, is nakedness of virtue, wear and worn, slumped over the piano, the unavoidable verdict murmuring on, as reasons for getting rid of bodies ally themselves to protesters in Bangor until all forces unify in the end. Chatter parade. Scandals hide the craven crumbs. Wanting slivers time. The darkened cloth changes hands. One more I wanted to read. It doesn't have the post-it. So while I'm looking, let me just say thank you. So thank you to the Grolier for having us here and for all of you for coming. And also thank you to Kevin and Gillian for reading with me. I want to find you this one poem that the post-it fell off of, so give me a sec. Oh. Funny. Okay, there it is. Oh, it does have a post-it. I just lost the post-its. Okay, 1.7 million. Afternoon begs escape as rain chills the sheets. Gears are stripped and girls hollered loud across the park's swollen meadow where our trammeled green veers to fever like the open mouths of crowns set to shimmer on murderous heads. And last for this book is Friday Day, Friday Night. This one takes place at Counterpath, which is the space that I run in Denver with my partner, Tim, and a lot of things happen there. And this actually is a reference to the first thing that we did there when we started doing things again after lockdown. So yeah, Friday Day, Friday Night. Days Garamond 10 in the eugenic stride of pissed off job lines and anti-home ec handouts. Skies so hard blue it's unbalanced, forcing the earth like a bitch in the park's pathways chained to her human's hand. Platinum plaited cruddier dolls fall forward toward the torn edge of a box. We've got underwear in a stroller and tomato stalks stalled in the dirt. Come on. Rick's giving letter-pressed vote signs away, and Blair's rad aiders are out with their alt cop flyer for free. Nights ashy and hopeful and deep. We go there, our faces flash, rushed with new blood. All right. So this next little bit is from a book called Turning, which is the third of a trilogy. The trilogy's name is Overflow. And what this particular thing is doing is just thinking about, somewhat thinking about the Jewish concept of teshuva, which is to turn or turn towards, turn away from, and also just kind of thinking of the act of turning, of spinning, of how things move or might move and revolve and change. So yeah. I know a woman whose back no longer supports her front. She leans her elbows on a table. There's also a child, but I can't show her to you, for she's gone under the shadows of the trees. Into her ocean blue elbows, the woman pours the weight of her having once lived. And yet it was she and I, pried and pulled the carrots from the ground, brushed off the soil and held them up to a mother with her daughter in a stroller. Later, we put the plums and peaches in a bag held open, brought food to the house where the people were grieving. But how large was this garden we were growing? Would it ever be large enough to protect us from the announcements? No. I had put the announcements in the trash. I had even lit them on fire, had watched the fire burn itself out, but then there was only more of what they were. We held open the soil, pulled and pried. We to the house with the proteins, the sugars, we under the threat in the clamor of the announcements, their endless arrival, their banging. We returned to the garden and we bent over. As the stars in their ancient wandering, as the stars as they burn, as they're forgotten, as the spheres were said to while singing, each one to an intellect assigned, as the planets each in its own orbit, as the planets counterclockwise must, as the infant's head on its swivel, searching for the nipple it knows, on the moment of being born or before it, as the milk in the alveoli is sent by prolactin and oxytocin in the mind, as the mind in its chemical thinking, when the infant it imagines is seeking, with swivel head and smooth gums is seeking, as the one on her knees up gathers, when the one who is standing demands it, as fossils accumulate in the stomach of cows, of dogs, and of people, as the flame will every which way, the oxygen in its orbiting trap, bonding, unbonding, and bonding in what we call rain, we call wind, we call body, in what we call breath. One morning, you and I took a walk beside a pond in which newly blooming water lilies like upturned palms balancing jewels shimmered discreetly. Growing too warm, we turned to the gathered shade where a boy in white was waving a dollar bill, asking for coins to toss into the well. Having no coins, he poured water to the water. All of this I'd seen clearly from my seat on the floor of the closet. I was at once with you and the boy, and I was alone. We found a bench in that shady corner under the arms of a silver maple. The boy followed us there, waving his dollar bill. His shirt, white, was too large for his slight body, appearing as a flash. We'd been speaking about angels, how sometimes they are infants and sometimes they are birds, either way, winged. How it depends upon the century and also on the religion which they are. It is important to listen, you said, when they speak, for they serve two worlds. This was when the boy interrupted us. I thought he was high, certainly very mobile. I had not yet fully recovered from an illness, one ear clogged, frequently falling into a racking cough, in which it seemed I was forcing my lungs into flight. I'd asked you a simple question: why must God be considered good? As a question, you said, this makes no sense. The wind had quieted so that a nearby flag hung flaccidly on its pole. I was thinking, as I always did when I was with you, of my mother. It was not that you reminded me of her, but that I, with you, reminded me of myself with her. With my one good ear, I waited. Unlike the heat from the sun, you were saying, God overflows not into you, but as you who are not neglected, you who are not forgotten, governed by not chance. But we have no faith in being governed, I answered. We have no faith left in the law. My tongue was not endowed with listening, my hands not given to see. The boy in the white shirt wanted bread to eat, a coin to throw. Failing both, he threw a stone into the well. His mother said, and what would happen if everyone threw a stone? But what would? It had happened. The bread in the hand, the coin in the hand, the stone in the hand. The bread in the mouth, the coin in the mouth, the stone in the mouth. The bread in the belly, the coin in the belly, the stone in the belly. This is what we call history. I'd been hot inside the closet trying to peel a shirt off my back, and it would not be removed. It held on as if it were really my skin. I'd wanted to return to the room where the others were sprawled on couches, laughing quietly. They were waiting, but not for me, for the candidate, her purposeful step. It was as if they did not even know I was absent. Hotter, sweating, I was desperate with the effort to undress. Then my phone rang. It was my friend, Anna. She told me she'd been called to her mother who was dying. The care worker had called to tell her to come, just as she, Anna, had been preparing for the manifestation. The manifestation was to be held on the steps of the Capitol, where people would demand the end of killing. As the words flew from their mouths like ghosts from out of graves, the killing continued. There is no time, said the people, in which there is no killing. And yet, they said, we oppose the killing. It was November. Fallen leaves turned to golden dust under their marching soles and rose in little clouds around their ankles. The people opposing killing joined their voices into song, but the building they sang to was empty. No lights on, no footsteps in hallways, the room stripped bare, even of furniture. If one were to gaze over the heads of these manifesting people, one would see behind them a shining bay. The sky that day was gray and cold, but the ocean was nonetheless sparkling, as if on another plane of existence. A single sailboat slid left to right, like a woman slicing an apple in half. Anna on the phone was crying for her mother who had fallen, and I, listening to her cry, sat on the closet floor in my hot, tight, wet clothing, a bar of light under the door. And on the other side, the candidate had arrived. She sat rigid on the edge of her chair. Anna paused in her crying to take a drag from her cigarette. I have to go, she said then. I have to pack my suitcase. After that, I fell asleep. Sadness overcame me. My own mother, long dead, appeared seated on her bed. That very morning, she'd left the house with a sense of urgency, rushing, well-dressed, ready, but her day had gone badly and she'd had to return home early, having been, as she put it, defeated. I sat beside her as she spoke her frustration into her hands. Come on, I said finally, let's go for a walk. Outside, we found the ocean rocking, and we, walking beside it, seemed also to rock, so much so that my mother, who was never very strong in the bodily sense, grabbed hold of my hand. This was when she told me she'd been losing the ability to walk in a straight line. She'd begun to lean, she said, always a bit to the left, so that her path kept turning, veering, curving. If not careful, she said, she'd find herself walking only in circles, as if she had no ambitions at all. But was there, I asked, gripping her small hand tightly, drawing her close to me, so that we might walk steadily forward on the road that bordered the sea. Anywhere she was, in fact, trying to get to? Was there, I said, a particular destination? People, she answered, are diminished. You will see. She said this as if to hurt me, as if she could not bear my strength, even as she relied on it. I will see, I echoed, just as a wind rose and whipped my face, like a beast, I found myself thinking. The crack under the closet door went black. The meeting was over. The candidate, then the others, left the room. And now I was cold, and the clothing slipped off of me. I opened the closet door and walked, naked, into the darkened meeting room. At the window, I stood, leaning my naked body against the cool glass, and looked down into the city in which my mother did not exist, in which the manifestation no longer raged, against which the ocean pressed, asking to be admitted, asking to rise, and I saw no one. I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
It's like we're in one big dressing room.
Or closet.
Or something. Hi. So hi, everyone. And this is, the microphone's good?
Yeah.
Okay. That was great, Shelley. Okay, so I'm gonna read an older poem because I thought it was, of this moment. And then I'm gonna read I'm gonna read new work. All right. So the title of this is A Hatchet with Which to Chop at the Frozen Seas Inside Us, which is Kafka. I wish I wrote that, but it's Kafka. A hatchet with which to chop at the frozen seas inside us. To wake to winter and the coming out of the time of year when they release the masterpieces, but to be still in the other night. Some drown in movies. Some prefer the unfinished, ungovernable recital, a mystical ecology where one dies in a camp or rolls out with the dice on the sidewalk among boys with cardboard shields and plays dead in white crinoline. What if paradise was only lifting the veil to flirt? No one perfect, but perfection inserts us so. Pascal thinks a god in his pocket. What if paradise meant walking on the ground of our self-estrangement, in the veil of our gaze, an unsteady balm was not what we saw through, but were, twisting, untwisting. Do you believe we were never strictly servants? So, this is I'm working on a new book that doesn't, it doesn't really have a title yet. It kind of does, but I'm not going to, it's too scary to tell you. And the poems are a lot of the poems address war, and there's a war series in the poems. War One, War Two, which actually have had, we have World War One, we've got World War Two, then three, and then it leaps to, it goes to 4, 9, and then I think I have 11. You're not going to get all of them, but I'm going to read just a couple of them and one more from that. But this is War One, which actually has some references from World War One in it. This was the war for secrets. Were women allowed on the battlefield? Did they fight anyway, hidden in uniform? Could anyone tell? In the moral, already sacked. Infinity's androgyny, a soprano to a baritone. Wild ferns chipped for sustenance. Horses wore gas masks. Camels carried the infirm. Mules tried. Elephants broke rubble with their trunks. Pigeons messaged. Cats ate rats. Canaries died or chirped back. Stubby was the dog who could salute. The fly swarms at Gully Beach. My fathers were once happy men, boy childs posing in their swim trunks, back to back, clasping hands, spitting river water up out of their mouths like a public fountain with force through their teeth for more height. The water dripped melon flow down the chin. The maps they folded curled sight, furled time. To try to guide this power to the next power, I slept beneath the pelt, typed the report. I was a daughter willing to speak in anyone's father lingo, miscreants, brotherly cocks, ghost-colored cocks grown ashy in the fields, the muscled legs, arms strewn in the forest, the jungle, the beach. The disarray of death was in the dissolution of the uniform. I was the daughter. I had no definitive location. Seeking honor in the crisp peaks of my nurse cap, I began to straighten in the corpse fields. I picked up escalation. I covered hallucination with dirt. I released Eden. Like the earth, I had tidal loyalties. Wherever I walked, the body parts, the pigment, the grasses. I knew I was a speck in the cosmos in every hour's dry, complicated hair. Uh, I'm gonna skip word two because it'll make sense. So this is word three. This one's getting ready to talk. Cyclops of swirling headlight in the black box sees empty seats in a theater until we file in, report, respond, dub, or go numb before another black box, the one of our extinction, with the red but round button to press. If today you die, if tomorrow brings lyric, vulva cloud takes the tree, the whiteness of the page seeping through or up so as to not get ahead of the perceptions, green grass leaking copper. If tomorrow brings lyric, if lyric is new fossil energy, theatrics in the black box, Medusa's mortal locks released, snakeless. If tomorrow brings lyric, if lyric is new fossil, we have the energy. War 4. So quiet. Seems like everyone's just forgotten how to do it. In a mixture of rains, fog, torn pieces of wool, everyone's lost their fangs. Imagine it. Love thy neighbor. Love thy, don't get snatched up in metaphor, pearls on a black dress, a green blouse, down the pressed trousers. How in love with you I am, stag, wolf. A primrose begun near volcanic inactivity. A weapon, a lissome candelabra left on the bar floor. And mouthless, only hounds on earth left to answer when the world calls. And this is the thanks, Groliers, for having us, and thank you, James, and thanks for the rapid fire interest. And I thank all of you for coming, and thank you, Julie and Kevin, my dear sweet friend, for reading, and Julie's family for putting up with me. I'm nervous about Julie's family. Okay. So the poem is now called Hungry Ghost. My father was an American World War II hero. He won a Silver Star. He won 2 Purple Hearts. He was only 22, and then he came home and did the whole American war hero thing, and then became an anti-war activist. And the term hungry ghost, I would imagine that most of you are familiar with, but if you're not, it's a bardic term, a Buddhist term that has to do with the bardic journey. And if on this planet, this earth, you have killed, you are not allowed to move past a certain place in your bardic journey, and you must pace the earth in insatiable hunger. And nothing is enough to feed that hunger. My father's dress marine cap is sitting off center on top the dead writers section of my bookshelves. What else to do? No recall taking it from the chest, musty attic where the rest of his uniform lay folded. Truth is, no one has ever seen a hungry ghost. Only articles of clothing left behind are in the half lungwort, half bluebell blue, ochre, fawn brown, and lavender Buddhist watercolors of small mouths and large stomachs, scrawny necks, pearly corpuscles of infection, often a red flare of ink, an ashen cloud when one was forced into such a position, made to open one's mouth so wide so the hungry ghost could enter one, roam, inhabit Hector's body being dragged around the arena by Achilles, and my lover is dead. Grief, the dust coating Hector's corpse more and more each lap around Achilles' insatiable grief. Some can leave hell, unlike other hell dwellers. Never run down another person's ghost path, or you will get too far ahead of your life. What's the matter? Did you not receive a proper burial? Never ask. When self and non-self trade shoes, it is a transmission, a transience in this world and off. Each goes down different streets, other lives, connections, infinities, symphonies of other voices in one's thorax. The sword, the pistol, the rifle, the small bottle of poison to take in case you are captured so as to not give up your nation's secrets. In every single century, we descended to our lowest. Eve curls her lashes, as if now we can live in peace and with the birds. My dead father comes to sit sometimes, quiet and still, with his lurid, historical, violent paperbacks, his Winston 1/4 burned in one hand. His beautiful bare feet have now lengthened a bit and have become as straight as a yogi's. You hungry today? I'm not so hungry. I had a hamburger. And 1,000 Instagram likes. My father doesn't mind when I talk beyond his future. We both have been raised to act like we know what we are doing. All is illusion. The world is over and beginning and over. Eve slips down from the cypress as if she knows just exactly what she is going to do. Slit the stem of the hydrangea on one side only so as to best take the water in. I put on my father's marine cap, and due to my being a grown woman and he was just a boy of 22, the cap nearly fits, and I smell the silk lining of death under the sweat-stained yellow plastic covering the silk, and see in the folds of the cap's deepest interior the smaller, thick plastic sleeve attached, just big enough for a name tag. On paper, the Conoley penciled in and sewn tight. Others wore this cap, though in the end it was his, ours, life to death, death to life. In the sweat of the butchers, I turned to face my father, soldier to soldier. The sofa is trench to the trenchant. Our communication has now leached into sempiternal scale. No psychic residue, semper fi, meant faithful, meant nobody will be shooting me. I will not be killing anybody. I will no more be seeing my friends die. Eve is in a sad mirth, her lashes in the malarial jungle smudged. This is usually when my father goes all zombie. My father is back into combat exhaustion. The corpses he dragged back, the corpses he created and stepped over. He is unable to respond to conversation with anyone, but to the one I am trying to have with him. He is back on his beautiful feet, walking back into the sea where I was spawned. Thank you so much, and thank you, Grolier.
Hello. Is it working? Okay. Um, higher? Does that, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming. It's great to see you. It's a real pleasure and honor for me to read with Julie and Gillian, whom I admire very, very much, with whom I have, I guess, growing friendships. And it's great to see so many dear friends and colleagues here. I did not win. I didn't even know there was a Grolier Poetry Prize, but I'm happy for you. However, I will say that when I was in college here, I worked at this bookstore under an interesting character named Louisa, who is among us somewhere. I could talk a lot about that, but I worked here and I've never read here. So in like 20 years, never done it. So it's actually really nice to do so. So I'm gonna read this. I'm going to start by reading this poem that's a little longish. And it's a poem that is like attempts to be sort of explicitly political, which is something I've found difficult. I feel like the language of my writing is I don't know, grammatically fragmentary and kind of oblique, and it's sort of hard to try to write something that feels more explicit. In the first Trump administration, the American Repertory Theater asked some of us to do this event called Resistance, and so I spent about a month putting this poem together. And so that was then, and here we are. I don't know if it's relevant anymore. It felt like it was then. I don't know, but I wanted to try to read it. I've only read it twice at readings and once with friends. I think Anna is the only one who's actually heard this poem. So I'm going to read that, and then I'll read two short poems as a kind of change, and then one medium-ish poem. So the first poem is called Riot. I also always get my mouth always gets dry. I mean, I'm just dropping loose leaves of paper around. All right, Riot. The streets at night, and is a circle or queer sapphire ringing plastic. Oh, young man, fabulous muscles star, and it is a shadow flowing over pines, a store nearby, showering gray sparks. I found you in a club circling in air. It was, they say, your mind, or down the walls, really, leading a corner, laughing, or nebulous, darling, cumulus rocking stones over broken statue, a dirt pond mouthing in golden archangel. The norm cannot compete with that color. When I was younger, I wore only one color. My boyfriend liked to fuck in parking lots. We used to go to these reeds by a lake. He was kind of punk, but had the most beautiful sweaters. After the protests, the police held us for a very long time. He was avoiding their questions, but looking very directly into their eyes. This bothered them, and so they hit him. Red, gold, radii. So we left the green housing project to go to the sea. glass heaping hyaline waves. So cold today, then at night a piece of meat booking it, ashen heaps, work it into cold, she says, over those scraps, hot boys hustling in the snow. Inverted triangles, angelic swarms, bread. We are dancing to Goodbye Horses in the dark. Outside there is so much snow in the darkness. We burn a cardboard box in the middle of the wooden floor. We dance and drink and kiss and jump. Seraphs in white leather jackets. Goodbye, horses, I'm dying over you. When we left, we were harassed. Someone threw a rock. All motion and no motion, freedom and sex are seeds, arching, becoming chariots. So cold today, we are writing this down because they are acts and to grip something of the world. 5 squared, a sunflower, this is Times Square, 42nd Street. Ribboning out numerically, wandering happily, tie down to the bed, tied up to a railroad tie, splintered the heavier flowers. Went all the way, wanted to see was the tall buildings. Today is blue if right gay is still young, suicide and black shirt, pink flag, palindrome. They say, walk fag into the tub. It is there for you. Boy, top, blonde, sun, hard, green shame at garden edge wall, end on within self itself, hard, white, sheer body, boundary, sub boy, meth blows lab. We were wandering, we were arguing. This was a group of concerned citizens. This was a group that thought it needed protection and change and light and a window. I thought we needed a window if we say something different than good, every flower would overflow a grammar. Our union wanted to say something about assemblages. There is this whole set of losses, chalking, salting, gathering weight, bits of broken salt, metal, anyway. Exactly, you understand. His tastes like a tree, or it tastes of moss and wet bark, or metal and lichen. His body, this vegetal mineral thing. You there, you had breathed in coal dust, and that is something. We are seeing there is a solidity of the group itself, this cluster of agents, of windows and trashscapes, the function, the things that are silenced, and this a position for the speaking it out. 12-tone to him his sugared root as rock or quartz or smoke hung with branches, gold dust rung with sun shafts. And we walk back together through the leaf-strewn streets in our shades of flannel and our beat up for holding hands. That then caused queer flowering in pink lattices, shouldering up a bunch of them, fighting in the street, holding an intersection, tear gas cascading in rainbows across their bleary eyes. You want to fight a city, zigzagging heap light year in a dark function, and any kind of rhythm, damn you, we wanted to bust them open, talking about money, and they clear-cut the whole thing. And streams flow, wild song standing therefore, listen, voices, silver leaves, monarch, broken root, crushed can, money rustles in the throats of the wealthy. In autumn, the insect always shores up against, so allium grit, make him hard, to bend, to have, to skin. Or my friend, a great poet, who said for a long time she had trouble with activism against the police because they are also workers, also trapped within a system that is capitalism or class or militarized government. And then she wrote a poem that said, fuck them, because you get to make a choice. Under him, bullets, backyard, quiver, cup held for loose change, painted sugar along street atoms, hose, crowd, cop, street, spray. Soup from an ashtray, I mean shred, you the beautiful, barn or fragrant, rhinestones, eyelashes, we to say, by the project, asphodel under there, you couldn't stay there, or running prisons privately against the vile megaphone flame, this trace, shimmer on a rooftop quaking, those men eat glass. And so his death was not so the others could appreciate their own lives, not so that they could come to a meaning and place. This is not a film. You can't see yourself or fall in line. Now it might be happening through the populace, reels of action projected through the trees, aspen genus, people moving. One might say an array of pink triangles. If something appears, fierce queen on a blank stage, a slab of quartz in the snow, a sort of directed rage. Crown yellow, winter older gear, cop hit lie, mother yelling, kid lot dirt rock kick, happy kid lot dirt rock kick, happy striped blue tent breaking, circle Tetris, genius, flower chrome. Yellow bandages in a bunch for a mesh inside, the diamonds crushed in your lover's heart, bashed up and hungry, then into any backlit room or flopped diadem, a bunch of homos sleeping. So you would say, unfolding any dark dream she had under the back porch, take a walk on the wild, lady came to play, flowing dries into hidden spaces, two songs running over one another, penetrating in perfect bright striations. To act up, and the heaping up of acts you walk through, accumulating distances or thought of blush infinities, the groundwork strewn with work and choice. So, shattered into stilettoed loop of angelic armies to spread their lovers' ashes on the White House lawn. Remember a lover smoking on a rooftop, across a rooftop shadowing the anarchists, astral carpets blurring in the smoke. The gauge is high, we might climb up, and over endless mesh and identities strung in deep sound or hope and or long talk at empire's close. Flung free under all the snow, to widened endlessly and padded violently, he breaks out to say, come outside. So if we move up, and people in the street this could be, this as a burning flow, at the end of a curve, roll out in a bright dress, naked at the door. So, that's that. Relatively longish. I usually read shorter poems or punchier, crowd painter. So these are two shorter ones, and then that sort of middle length one. So, Micah, that would a creek drank, or certainty through and objects contracting, vertices of X's, a hardwood to shower his rippling, and tender that would be, and go up the cliff, lone pine atop it, that would be a lilac bush, him running past you, turning into lilacs. This is called Chrysoprase, which Talin, and thank you, Talin, for that beautiful introduction. The Talin mention is, I'm reading it from my friend Harmon because he likes this poem. It's called Chrysoprase. Icosahedral, the antipodal variation for Vivian, and wheels within wheels take him from behind, thrusting an infinite variation. The god splits into and is in front and is behind this perfect green man cut out of wood anyway, ophonym, the darker substrate, a Subway, McDonald's, a Wendy's, at 3 a.m. in the wastes of the city come out of the club, enter the electric grid, ECT shivering up through her spine and digitizing thunder and traffic noises, say again, rainbow, rainbow, all the music is a rainbow. And then the last one, which is called Grid, just read from it. And that's not very long, but I mean, it's not that short. But AUHG, or a fissure in rock, it has feather fluted apex or silver cloth mesh, daisy petal stem, a piece of green lock. He is a kind of god, and wet lion going toward the sun, gyroscope of spectra. If he fell down, is messenger, the liar, the thief, a metallic child, chords. There was a northern inventor of strange sounds, his music called chromatica, hydrocarbon, yellow dandelion wheel, flakes off in oxen, if white poplar, if oxygen in water, curve exfoliating winged birch bark written on inside the palm or the skull. Electricity in hyacinth or butter, under the wall, covered in white monarchs, wind, fluttering, wind, powder emulsion, caked white cyanide, a straight boy against the wall under the tree is getting head, his face quivering, his head bent back, lone birch sapling in white mountain, so wide, always like a wall. In Euclidean space, accountable union and chloroform window that spaces itself, if a child in a glade or if a child in a shelter and all the leaves falling upward, null if algebra, the flight of seagulls and the song, that tin cry in the throat of the birds, rubbing my neck, now my throat, and flowers on his lips, or dust or ashes, and the dead lover, the pompe funèbre, all our humming sounds like bees, all the grieving or nothing, all the empty feeling, the tired talking, the hands in the shirts, the collars, the cuffs, the handshaking and white linear algebra, if a seagull, if sand, if it is true that the circle opens, or if the sigma ideal, if the white symbol sigma algebra, this is a theory of, or if der Raum raumt, and if the gravid circle opens, if the grave there a city of words or a city of light, and we hold something. It is a tabernacle. No, it is roses. No, it is memory. No, it is atoms or ions or rows. This is a mathematics spreading itself on a space that it makes, and it is always defining a notion of almost everywhere. Total length, box of flowers. This condition can be generalized using cubes instead of intervals. So first seeds in air, then music and air, these two men together to drink of it, the pines or ash. In the theory, the idea can always be made to make sense. That is, on any possible manifold, you see it, falling through light and amplitude, and the aurora, lie under there and wash his body, the numbers appearing in air. In the sea, the green like a jade axe or an emerald, when you hold it there in the lot at the back of it, off a street, a kid is giving a blowjob. An endless sea of light is not a ruler, not a number, not without mother or a white room, and therefore stochastic process or simples in birch groves, the organization of matter for which you say you are a silicate, are a happy you are a silicate, are a prince, a happy vertex. If there could even be such a matter in there, what kind of milk green shade at the far end? The ontology of elms go on in the garden, go on into light, a bit of moth, the particulate eye, breaking like waves, say the cliff of the object, it is nowhere, therefore a bit of lumen, the filling white loop, a spreading sphere, he gets so thin, the street, the lot, the fence, the floor, chip into pattern of windows, white stairs, it is appearing in and through the aspens or splintering amputation, disintegrate equals signs, touch me, along an axis, if white is the asymptote, semen, stamen, if he comes on his lips, a language, a calyx. Feldspar, shadow, clouds of grain, a green pole around dance, bright beard albite or antecene, from cypress to pine before, is it translucent or void, or water suspended in air? Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Good evening, let's give the poets another round of applause. Books for sale, folks will be signing books, if everyone could please put your chairs up against one of the walls, I'd be very grateful, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. Thank you to you.
There. No, not at all. I'm promising my name on it.
Oh, yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, that was really
So
good.
far in the world.
You know.
Really? I was so glad I was not gonna ever repeat it. That lawyer one.
Yeah. It was That was gorgeous.
Yeah, that was pretty that was amazing. It was so good to spend so much time in that way and then have them realize, you know, it's like.
Yeah.
And I didn't see how.
But like, I don't even know what I think about that first one.
Oh, I love that.
Okay.
Dude, I think you have your most whatever arms like that one at the back of this, that like definitely.
I know.
Over
It's
this
there.
work.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's really.
No, you're right about that. It's where does it run? I think.
Oh, maybe I need to do the other way.
Gotta do that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having sold as many chairs.
Yeah, right. But yeah, so that was really interesting. And it's something to be able to know. Oh, it's not.
Glad to do. His book and
Yeah.
then I reread.
A lot of held. I mean, I don't know, like, I don't like the ones that we,
Yeah.
it used to be Christina. I mean, it's not like that. You've read, I mean, Bonte, you know, whatever, there's that, but there's something about those like work with.
Yeah.
So, and your dad, that he'd been in World War, oh my God, I never knew that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He was young. Young. The photographs are sad because he's so young. And then, you know, as a kid, I never, we were
Probably didn't talk about it. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
I slowly began to, because I saw him one time watching a movie, a World War II movie,
Yeah.
black and white TV. And I walked, he didn't see me, and he was curled up in a fetal
Oh
position
my God.
and just weeping.
Oh.
Totally, you know, I've never seen him like that at all.
Oh,
I didn't know what it really meant. I was more like 8, 9 years old,
Scary.
but I remember it really well.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Putting the different pieces together, realizing that he was a highly traumatized
Yeah.
man. You know, that hit all of that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I don't know, with all this, I've been thinking about
Yeah.
that.
Right.
And he was really Christian, like not some kind of, he wasn't evangelical, but he was a,
Yeah.
he had to live with the thing, because he killed
Yeah, I mean, that,
people.
I think there's, like, I haven't heard that. Yeah.
And it was like, they died of Parkinson's disease, and everyone involved in this particular died. So it killed him.
May I please borrow you for 10 seconds to get a photo? Beautiful. You did. Have a good one, guys. Yeah, let's do it.
You have your big red one. We can pull it there.
Okay.
I have, well, I have a.
There's one, I just didn't read from it.
Beautiful.
Saturday.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for reading. A lot of people coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
That does happen sometimes, Karen, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just a problem. Oh my gosh, if it's hot, I have to run AC. It's a green.
No.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. Only costs all. That's just very. Showed up in numbers. I think people try to come in. And show up. That's
Backstage. But that was, yeah. That, of course, that was great fun. That was super fun. But no, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think people do that.
Right.
Say hi to Angie.
Yes, definitely. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I live here. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and thanks so much for coming.
Okay. Sasha left.
Apparently, if you,
Yeah.
Oh, she's on? Thank you.
You don't mind I use your name.
You know, right? Yeah. Again, I mean, really.